Hello viewers, this is the Rebound series. My name is Farai Mwakutuya. This program is brought to you with support from the Zimbabwe Coalition on Debt and Development. Now, I am at the iconic Mushandira Pamwe Hotel in Harare's Highfield suburb, where a national budget consultative meeting is about to get underway. Insights from this meeting and others will be the focus of this edition's program, where we focus on bringing you the people's budget.
I would like to submit this towards the House, calling for 15% towards sustainable healthcare financing as per the Abuja Declaration. Honorable MPs, our healthcare service delivery has of late been plagued by, amongst others, massive brain drain, antiquated and obsolete equipment, lack of essential medicines, and disgruntled healthcare workers due to poor remuneration. This does not only compromise the quality of service rendered, but is also in violation of Section 76 of Zimbabwe's 2013 National Constitution. A healthy nation is but a productive nation. Failure to fund and prioritize healthcare service delivery is a cocktail for disaster. As we shall also not realize the national dreams like towards an upper middle income society by 2030, and also realization of the Sustainable Development Goals, SDGs. There is need for quality, not quantity, healthcare service delivery. How? By prioritizing and the ratification of the Abuja Declaration, now, not later. Time is running out for the government, on the part of the government of Zimbabwe, because since inception of the Abuja Declaration, we have never realized or enjoyed the tenets of the Abuja Declaration. Records prove it. So now this is the time to do so. Budget allocation towards healthcare financing must be prioritized so that we all enjoy that right, Section 76 of Zimbabwe's Constitution, to the betterment of every Zimbabwe. 15% per Abuja Declaration is all what we want and is needed for starters. This is the time. I thank you.
In that of Florence Nyam, Women's Coalition, as no Karampleno. In any Kumbiro Jamutana, Kumbiro, Netting the Latinare, Natanga, just wash your hands and sanitize yourself. But it was done to the Latina on Derem Vura, a quantum Vura, on our Pesaton to Ambrene, Cinema, Quisiku Geza, Bamaba Tonga, say area yetu yakata say Glenora. Vreno kwa kamwe chete pashono asitradai kumbira pa budget mati gonera pa budget yatishazoya kuti gadzisiro mapaipi edu chipoto ichwana mvura misinengwa kuti vanhu varege kubatwa nezvirwere kozoita zvenherera dzakasiwa mucovid ndanchikumbirisa kudai zvaigonekawo social welfare yadzokera pakare ichipindawo door to door ichibatsira nherera nokuti pane dzimwe nherera dzatiri kutoona dzatoshaya chekudya sevanasikana vamwe vari vechidiki dziri nherera vakutozvimanikidza kuenda kuearly marriage nekuti vanenge vasina muchengeti vasina chekudya. Saka ndachikumbirisa kuti dai mationgorerawo munharaunda dzatigeredzi muchibatsirawo nherera dzakasiwa necovid. Covid yakasiya nherera dzakawandisa nekuvapawo vamwe zvekudya, nekuti mumwe anogona kuya pandiri inini kuti ndimuchengete, but basa rangu ini rakaafektwa necovid. Handisakwanisa kuti nditore metrera ndichengete ndipe chekudya. Saka dai zvaigona chichemo changu chomatisvitsirawo plus vana vechikoro paakutiremera. Ndine vana 4 vanoenda kuchikoro, ndinonzi nditenge matextbook, ndinonzi nditenge maexercise books. Zvaakutiremera pabhajeti avo zvaidiwo zvadzokera sakare kuti mabhuku kana tikawaniswa ekuverenga ekunyorera totenga, kana tikawanirwa ekunyorera ekuverenga totenga. Nokuti vana vazhinji vakutadza kuenda kuchikoro kuti munhu anodzingwa kuti kuchikoro hakwanisa kudzidza usina mabhuku. Saka ndachikumbirawo kuti pabhajeti ichaitwa ngatibatsirirewo pavana vedu kuti vawane dzidzo semavana atakaitawo isusu dzidzo. Tatenda.
Now, that public meeting is taking place in Mushandira Pamwe Hotel just behind me. I'm now joined by one of the people who's come here to give their views and submissions. He's representing young people. Welcome to the program. I'll first begin by asking you to introduce yourself, your names and who you are here representing.
Thank you so much, Mr. Makutuya. My name is Mthuli. I'm a young person and I'm currently representing myself, maybe with other young people as well.
What do you think are the hopes and aspirations of most people like yourself, young people, from the forthcoming budget?
We love Zimbabwe and we want to see national prosperity. And some of the key issues we wish to see being addressed within the budget. Number one, we talk about efficiency around the budget and within the implementation of the budget. You know, the budget does not exist in a vacuum. There's an ecosystem of institutions that assist in making sure that we realize what we want to see in the budget. Most of the parastatals and government institutions are not efficient at all. There are financial leakages. As a result, funds that are supposed to get to government are being exsanguinated by middlemen in the process. That's number one we wanted to see being addressed. Number two, let's look at the budget itself, the mechanics. The budget is being designed within the current of RTGS at an official bank rate of 86.7. But we know that within the parallel market, where the real foreign currency and economics is happening, it's 200 RTGS. So again, our budget is being not done practically. That's number one. Number two, the minister on record, they spoke that inflation was going to increase from 35 projected to 55. So already from the eroded budget in RTGS, then it's further eroded by the inflation. It's problematic. We want them to be practical when it comes to do about these things. Number three, we want to understand who is financing the budget. How much of the intra-revenue are we having as Zimbabwe? How much is coming from development partners? And how much are we paying in debt? How much is being allocated to debt? Maybe the very few cake that is going to remain is going to be allocated to debt, and the economy will remain informal and unproductive as it is. Number three, the other issue that we want to speak about is public service on itself. We really want to see 50% of the funds being allocated to effective public service delivery. We're talking about education. Our education was disturbed when we went to COVID. The lack of a disaster risk reduction plan forced the children in urban and rural areas to be home. Number two, health. COVID on its own is a health pandemic, and we did not have funds and mechanisms to combat and mitigate COVID. Number three, transport. If you were to go to Machipisa business station, you find there are long queues. So the budget should be able to address those anomalies because it's there to serve people. And we want to see maybe some of the funds being cut off from the wage bill, from our security personnel. We want security, but let's stop sending people outside Zimbabwe to engage in different wars that does not benefit us directly. We want to speak about, let's just say about the politicization of the whole program. Especially in rural areas, we know that when the program goes there, nobody will go against the chief, nobody will go against the sabuku. We really want it to be efficient, that citizens are able to speak their mind when they want it. And you know, the government should be able to cater for everybody, not only the economically active. We're talking about children in foster care, we're talking about children in home cares. Currently, they are being allocated 1,600 RTGS is the monthly fee to cater for their needs. But when you come to the market, it's less than $10.
Indeed.
What can we do when a person for $10?
Now, I just want to understand to what extent are young people or youths aware of, in touch with and engaged in processes such as this of crafting such important policies as the budget?
Thank you, Mr. Makutuya. I think there's a challenge when it comes to young people. There's a lot of governance and political process apathy. The young people, they are aware that something is happening, but they don't feel that there is something within for them. They do not feel responsible enough to participate. And I really want to challenge even the young people to say, if you do not come when your future is being deliberated upon, do not come and bemoan the actions of the government tomorrow when they wish to spend money according to their discretion. Where are we as young people? What are we doing? How best can we make sure that we ring-fence our interests? So young people, they know things are happening. Let me say maybe urban young people. I don't know of the mechanics of young people that are in rural areas. I don't know about the young people in confined areas. We have young people in hospitals, young people in prison. I don't know if the parliament is going to have the prerogative to go and hear their views again. But of the young people that are walking scot-free outside of all this structural imbalance that I've spoke about, they are aware of the program. I'm one of the young people. I posted about this program. I left the pamphlets as parliament. It's now upon their owners to take up the information.
What do you say to a counterpart of yours who says, look, whatever we say will not be heard. This government has probably already allocated these funds. We won't be listened to, so what's the point?
I would like to give an analogy of a human body, the human autonomy. The heart has a function to keep on beating. It should never protest to see the eyes are not seeing what I want, so I'm going to stop beating. You die. The legs have got the mandate to walk. You need to serve your function. Don't stop breathing. Don't stop reasoning. That's the issue, because we don't live in a Mawakaka system where there's no law. These are the laws that govern us. Whether we like it or we don't, they have a legal effect on us. So I would like to say to someone who's busy telling people that, please do not mislead other young people. Try to come, even when you don't know much, just try to come, listen, what are they discussing. That's how you build your knowledge. That's how you understand the overall system.
Indeed. How confident are you that these issues that you raised will be implemented or be addressed?
If I'm to give a percentage, I'd say maybe 40%. Number one, we look at the parliament itself. There are internal squabbles which takes away institutional integrity. We don't know if the parliamentary portfolio committee chairperson who was here today about finance will still be in office, because they are recalling each other. That's number one. Number two, they told us that they're going to come back with reflection in May. Already the financial year is already 6 months in. So if I do not agree with what is being prioritized, already it has been effected. But we are saying 40% is better than nothing at the end of the day. But to say I have 100%, I'm rallying 100% to say this process will come back. And look at the scale of participation. Consultation is when you speak to the leaders and they see what is a priority to them. It's not collective action. We want to see a situation where us, the citizens, sit together with the minister. We allocate the dollar by dollar, with the presence of all stakeholders. Consultation merely means I'm going to tell you something, you evaluate it at your own discretion, then you say this is what I want you to do. So on a scale of democracy and effective participation, we are still low, but we take it. It's better than nothing.
Indeed. And we must stop there, because we know that there are other consultations happening elsewhere across the country, and we'll bring you more insights and highlights from those events as we continue this discussion focusing on the people's budget.
At least 20% Minister of Transport. Then to Minister of Health, our quarter woman, young Syria, bandage or one. Therefore, can it happen some teacher budget no address and I is the Minister of Health. At least start a budget no for 50% of the Abuja declaration at the budget they ought for only 15% remaining. So far, then you look at the education. You often say, what can budget? They do not subsidize stable. Could encourage one of science so that person one research and other things. To provide the funding and the research allowance so that person who nature one find innovative. Sasa ngona wanashinokuda wakugadzira mota dzemagetsi vari kuEurope nekuna America vari maZimbabwe ngativa nechewo tivapawo mafadzi kuti vachengesecha havo vate innovation dzavo tivawo zvima-allowance so that nyika iendere mberi. Mungatarisa tine takarwa denda reCovid but muAfrica hakana kana nyika wani yakambokwanisa kugadzira kana vaccine. Ngativewo seZimbabwe sekuti tine one of the educated countries muAfrica tikwanisewo kuvawo nevafana kwanisa kuti madokta ari kundaita sachiwana kuAmerica vazhinji vanhu vakagadzira maCovid vaccine maZimbabwe mangwari makomiti acho. Why can't we also give those Zimbabweans? Let's provide funding and research allowance so that you can be able to Then thirdly, what are youth and sports? My youth has 67% of the total population of Zimbabwe, but I'm not going to say asi tiri kuti hanzi mayouth ngave innovative ngaakwanise kuita maentrepreneurship but hakuna kana chunhu ukaenda paecobank hapana kana empower bank hapana kana chunhu wasabasa kana youth tine mayouth akanyoswa mazita achinzi vakafektwa ungani mabhizi akafektwa necovid but hapana zvakazombofamba saka ndaifungawo sekuti sezvo kuti ministry of youth and sport ungata sport yedu futi yadzikira nezuro uno tairo kwasingaiti kugana mawarriors nenyaya yekuti hatina infrastructure vanhu vachina mari turachaita mudeme kuti mawarriors aende kunotamba bhora nyaya yemari ichinetsa saka ngatiadresewo ministry of youth and sport kwanisa kupa at least 5% yebudget so that kwanise kuoperatewo zvakanaka ndogara ndiko kumaministry kwese unana smith kanzi hakuna chiriko kwakatongoma budget rekungotaura ari but hakuna kumadiki I think tongorere vanhu vamatombo sezvikungogara zvikangomayo tionewo pabudget ipapo maita basa
budget ngariwedzerwe kuministry of youth sport arts and recreation kuti tipromote youth empowerment tikatarisa nyaya dzeunemployment dziri mumastreet dzawandisa so at least budget rikanoita 10% kuministry of youth it means something at least pa10% apa you can see kuti muharare munomuka amuna vocational training center tinenge takutodziwana kuna naruhwa kuna nachitumbisa but mucbd muno muri central hatina vocational training center saka at least mukawedzera ikoko vachaestablishawo vocational training center mucbd and also totasa ku-empowerment bank zvazvikambotaurwa kunzi mazita awandisa unongonoenda wonoapply uda kuti at least uite employment yako uchizvimiririra since kusina mabasa acho and then obva wasvika zita rako rinongoiswa aupiwe the fund yacho so I think mukanoisawo 10% kuministry of youth it makes sense.
We are proposing the construction of our own source of water, which is Mugabe. Everything has been done, including the feasibility, and we understand the budget of the construction of Mugabe is around $100 million. So we are hoping to see it in the 2022 national budget. And also, we are proposing the increment of the social protection initiatives. We have seen citizens getting a mere 300 eco cash during the COVID-19, which was said it's an allowance or an initiative to cover, especially people with disabilities and old people during the COVID-19 pandemic. So we are hoping to see that that there is an increment as well. I thank you.
My submission is on mining, issue of tax holidays. Tax holidays. Company Noya invest in Zimbabwe for 5 years. How many companies are in Zimbabwe? They can calculate government is losing a lot of money. Now, tax holidays. Because companies like say 100, wasn't battery checks, but very busy mining areas are very to wasn't corporate social responsibility of our creator. Government itself is losing a lot of money. Saka is it true? Panoda to fight avail funds for the fast tracking of the amendment of Mines and Mineral Act. That's my submission.
Empathy kwakatwa groundbreaking ceremony in the Olympic Stadium. But mukapashiko izvezvi hazvina kumira musha. Hapana chinoratidza kuti pada kuwaka stadium ende zvinhu izvi zvane makore. Tikuda masiriasi pagadzirwe paitwe zvinhu zvinofamba. Also tikutarisa kuti pabudget rikuya tikudawo empowerment of youth through sports, arts and recreation zvinongotaurawo ministry yacho. So sezvo mayouth variwo vakawanda wane 67.7%, ngakuve kuriko kunoendawo the larger portion yebudget rikuya. Tikutarisa kuti kumageto kwatinobva tine masports club izvezvizvi hakuchatarisiki zvazvimbumu zvega zvega. Tiri vakomana, tiri vasikana vane matalents. Tinogonawo zvemasports. So toda kuti government pabudget rikuya iri iallocate mari for infrastructure development, my sports club atinao aitwe revived. Kana mukaenda Coca-Cola kune inonzi Arcadia Sports Club, mukasvika izvezvi pasambo, but eSports Club yange yakatonaka. So just a budget tiri kuya really not developer infrastructure yemasports. Also, tikutarisirawo development sports and arts from grassroots. Tive izvezvi tikatasa national team tungoita same old people. So tikuti as young as 11 years old ngave vachideveloper from academies, government ichisupporta vana ivavo. Also tikutarisawo youth economic empowerment through projects. Zveshowa mayouth kuva innovative ndogonogadzirawo chimota changu chemawaya ndoisa mabatteries, but hakuna kwazvizongoenda zvinongoperera mugeto ndechinzi mudhara makaipa, but hazvina kwazviri kuenda. So that government ive inoidentifyawo talent ratinaro yotibatsirawo pamaprojects atinoita, yotarisawo vana vari kubva kumageto ndokune machallenges akawanda kuti unyasara kuti pari kugadzirwa chinhu chine musoro, but hakuna kwaziri kuzoenda because hapana finance inokwanisa kusimudzira mayouth ivavo. Totarisa futi nyaya yeeducation, tine vana vanogona zvechikoro zvakanaka, but hakuna kuva kuzoenda, especially ndochema nevana vegeto because dream geto itu vana varozongogumira form 4 hakuna A-level kwarizoenda and hakuna anomutarisa. Ndo vanhu vari kunetsa nenyaya yemutoriro watiri kutaura nawo everyday because munhu anoziva zvechikoro but hakuna kwari kuenda kubasa kwacho, hakuna kwanda kuenda kubasa, kunonzi kunodiwa malingi. Ndiyo corruption yakatanga ichimbotaura futi muno kunze kuti uende kubasa kuri kudiwa lingi. Inini 16 years old but hakuna lingi kara ndokwanisa kwana kuti ndiende kubasa. So kuti government ngave ichisupporta maprojects atiri kuitawo semayouth. I thank you.
At least pana pakaita mari inenge ichito munhu akaremara vanokwanisa kuzvibatsira kuti akwanise kutenga makrachisi acho kana kuti bhutsu zvacho. And then tozoenda panyaya yemari yatinowanikwa kubva kuwelfare. Mari iyoyo yakatidzikira ishoma zvokutoti wega kana unoona kutokuchengeta zveshuwaka mozose munhu akaremara unofanira kuimpresa unhu anokuchengeta. Waona kamari kake ka 3000 hapana chachiyokwana, uyo achakuassistant achakubatsira unodo something zvokuti mupe zvototi maybe mari yacho yawedzerwa zvaikana kusvikawo kana kuma50-60,000 kuti munhu tikwanise kuona kurarama, kuti tikwanise kutenga chikafu. Not vanhu vakawanda isusu vakaremara mostly hatina kudzidza. Zvakakonzerwa nevabereki vedu vokudhara vaitiviga nditi vachiona izifia very useless kuti uende kuchikoro hapana, even nyange kuimployiwa kwacho hapana. Zvototi notoita mabasa emaoko okutengesa, oti uchitengesa futi kuda kuti achikumbiro ipapo lese nichitengesa oga unoona mapurisa ekanzuro anouya achikushungurudza. So ngeni last month zvakatoitika kuchitungwisa ndiri kuzvitengesera zvinhu zvangu, mapurisa ekanzuro anasvika achikubata kutorera zvinhu zvako zvinhu, woti watorerwa kudaro uchaenda kumapurisa nditi uchabvisa fine, and then from there kuti uzocollecta magoods ako you have got to pay again something kuti wawana bheki. Ndobva ndatogara kapasi hapasina eni zvokupema upinda mutauri kupema tinenge tisingade but tinenge tichida kukwanisa kuzvitora mabasa edu emaoko. Thank you.
Well, I'm now joined by another participant at the public hearing that is taking place at the Ambassador Hotel, Masimba Kachere. Masimba, great to have you on the program. Could you tell us who you are here representing?
So I'm here representing the Center for Disability and Development and also the Zimbabwe Coalition on Debt and Development.
What are some of the key issues that you think should be addressed in the forthcoming budget, particularly from the perspective of people with disabilities?
There are a number of issues. Firstly, when we look at Section 22 and 83 of our Constitution, the state has or promises to do things for people with disabilities, but only within the limits of the resources available to it. And so in the 2022 budget, what we are asking for is to say, can the minister outline these resources probably as a percentage of the budget that will be ring-fenced and dedicated to the programs that the state endeavors to achieve in Section 83 and Section 22.
One of the, submissions I heard from participants here, again representing people with disabilities, was some sort of incentive for companies to employ people with disabilities. Is that viable?
Indeed, I think it is. I mean, we had a youth tax incentive, and I think you have a lot of people with disabilities who are out of work, perhaps because of discrimination or because of other reasons, and it could be a way of enticing companies to employ people with disabilities if they get tax incentives, because then the burden does not solely lie with the companies themselves. I mean, companies sometimes believe that people with disabilities are expensive to employ because of the extra devices that they may need to be able to achieve maximum capacity. But if then the company is given an incentive, they may start looking at things differently.
Another thing that I've heard from several people here is the need to address the social safety nets, social service delivery, so increase pension payouts, amongst other things like that, address issues to do with water sanitation. Are these achievable given the resource envelope that is available to Treasury?
So the first thing that we need to think about is how do we expand the resource envelope? And by saying that let's employ people with disabilities, let's allow them to go into business, the idea is then that we expand the resource envelope sufficiently so that some of the people with disabilities who at this time may be relying on the 3,000 RTGS dollar grant will move from being dependent of the state to people who are contributing to the economy of the country. Because the issue of the resource envelope, for me it's interesting because we also have a choice to either expand it or shrink it based on what we do. If the minister then dedicates a lot of money to social welfare and doesn't give people with disabilities, for instance, monies to start businesses and so on, we are shrinking the resource envelope. Definitely.
Indeed. Often the main priority and attention is given when it comes to budgets is given to the economic sectors, so manufacturing, industries, those sort of things, and those are the indicators that we look at. Do you think that enough is done to ensure that these budgets are people-driven and people-centered, so it trickles down to the common man and is not just focusing on employment creation and infrastructure development and those sort of issues?
Well, I think it's taking time for it to become people-centered. I mean, the thinking there is that if you put in then support to manufacturing or industries, there will be a trickle-down effect. But I think that these are sort of false indicators because they also don't look at the social fabric of the citizen. So, of course, you have good numbers floating around, 80% capacity utilization in industry and so on and so forth. But if that's not translating to people doing better socially and people having more disposable income, then these are just nice figures for you to report, but unfortunately will not be doing any good to the public. And this is why the public then starts to question what progress we are making, because they expect progress to be linked to their own life expectancy, to their own lifestyle choices, to their own ways of surviving.
Very lastly, do you have confidence, and do you think the public has confidence in processes such as this that are taking place now, this consultative process, that indeed what they are saying will be seen when the minister appears in Parliament presenting his budget later this year?
Well, I think more and more the public is participating. I think you can see by the number of people who are here that over the years would have been fewer and fewer people, but it appears now that more and more people are catching up to the idea that these are important processes, and although the suggestions may not be taken on board, I think that they will be stored somewhere and they will be useful definitely at a different time. So it's important to ensure that our voice is heard. It's important to ensure that the people make contributions, because I mean, public officials should definitely be listening to the citizen.
We have more participants who attended this public hearing to share their sentiments. Welcome to the program, ma'am. Could you introduce yourself?
Hello, my name is Chiwenga. I'm a musician as well as a citizen of Zimbabwe.
What is it that you would like to see in the 2022 budget?
Okay, standing in for my art of my business, would like more money put towards the arts in terms of branding it. As, for example, music and film, they sell Zimbabwe out there in everywhere, right? We're ambassadors of our country and we're representing them on every level. If somebody's looking for Zimbabwe, they go maybe on YouTube, they look at Zimbabwean music and it tells them of the story of Zimbabwe, like who are we as people. So let's say we want to get investors into the country, they would look at us, look at the economy through film, through music, through poetry, through, you know, we're telling the Zimbabwean story.
Would you therefore say that until now, or in the past, this area of art has not been given its due resourcing?
Yes, art is always the last thing that everybody seems to look at. Even if at a function, you know, they make all provisions for delegations and everything, and in the last minute, they're like, oh, I think we need some artists, some entertainment. You know, nobody seems to prioritize that. But if you look at stuff like, if we turned off radio, I mean, if we turned off music from radio, nobody would function. If we decided to take away film and just keep it news, you know, people need to digress. And music also plays a part in terms of mental health, in terms of getting the message out there, a program. Like now, we're heading towards a lot of things, like devolution and stuff. Who's in a better position to preach that word or to get it out there? It's
Than the
us.
artists,
Yeah.
indeed. Well, these engagements do continue and we get more views from people who are participating in this process. Sir, could you tell me your name and who you are here representing?
Okay, my name is Gift Tzorai and I'm representing Zimbabwe Caregivers Network.
Zimbabwe Caregivers Network. What is your interest or what do you want to see prioritized in the budget?
What we want to be prioritized in the budget is alternative care, where we have children who are living outside their biological family. So those who are living in children's homes and those who are living in foster care. So we want the government to put a lot of investment in that through a budget line that they call Children in Difficult Circumstances Fund. So initially children used to get a 1,500 RTGS per month. So we wanted to advocate that it has to be pushed up to say they may receive 60,000 per head per month.
Now, that's a huge increment.
Yes.
Given what we've seen in the past where government has said, look, we don't have the resources, where, I mean, civil servants want more money. So many things are required, but government always says it doesn't have enough money. How realistic is that demand or that request? Okay,
for us it is real because before we even started our work, the committal grant was at $15. But when we started our work, we pushed it to $200. It was approved to $200. And last year, we pushed it from $200 to $1,500. And it is already at $1,500. So we know that sometimes our government does deliver, even if the cake is small, but you have to prioritize where you put your money. Because children are the future of the country. So if we don't prioritize them and if we don't deliver safety nets and we don't provide social services to them, we won't get anywhere. So I think the demand is realistic. Maybe the figure may not be exactly that one, but the demand is realistic.
These children that you represent, I mean, their circumstances are quite unique. How many are we looking at? Maybe not an exact number, but how many are we looking at across Zimbabwe? And you know, if they don't get this sort of support or increase that you're looking for, what does it mean for them? Okay,
there are approximately around 7,800. And then what happens if they don't get the support? It means they don't develop. Their development is stalled. It means that they are not able to access health. They are not able to access education. And most importantly, they are not able to have the right to survive and development. And then the other thing that we are pushing today is when these children turn 18 years, we all know our constitution says when you turn 18, you are now an adult. the policy that is there right now, it says when you turn 18 years, you are discharged, you leave the children's home. And there is no aftercare support or anything for these children so that they have a safety net to bounce on when they leave alternative care. So instead of us only pushing for the increase of money whilst they are still in alternative care, we are also pushing for what we call an aftercare fund and an aftercare policy, which means that when they leave the homes, when they leave the foster care, they have to be taken care by the state. Because the policy says the state is the upper guardian and this has the responsibility of taking care of children within the children's homes and foster care. Also, our constitution in section 30 says the government must take all necessary measures to provide social protection to vulnerable communities, especially youths and children. So these youths have nowhere to go when they turn 18. They don't have any relatives to tend to. So we are calling for an aftercare fund and an aftercare policy.
Charity Mandishona, ndakamirira Women's Coalition of Zimbabwe and also Zimbabwe Chamber of Informal Economy Associations, ndoshanda navo.
Zvichemo zvenyu kana zvamunoshuvira kuona mubhajeti ya 2022 ndezvipi?
Chekutanga chandoshuvira kuona mubhajeti, ndataura ndakati nyanyotarisira nyaya yemadzimai, because madzimai ndisu tine mutoro wakanyanya, our gender roles akawanda. Saka ndataura panyaya yewater and sanitation, kuti mubhajeti ya 2021 panze pekuti vaise mvura mari yakawanda kuwater treatment, ngavatoisa mari yakawanda kuchera maboreholes, at least per each ward, solar powered boreholes, anoiswawo tank nemataps nepump kuti madzimai anongosvika achivhura mvura vobva vatora mvura yavo voenda.
Because nyaya yemvura ichinhu chinoshupa. Tinomboenda maguta akasiyana siyana chiona madzimai achita maqueue, vamwe achitoita kumukira pakati peusiku.
And zvichikonzeresa futi GBV kudzimba nokuti baba havazozvinzwisisa kuti mai kunonoka kwavaita vanonoka vari pachibhorani. Unenge watofunga kuti hamheno kwavari. Also tine vana vatinofanira kuita take care of. Saka time yandine ndiri kuchibhorani vana vanenge vasina muchengeti. Saka vana vanogona kuabuswa, kanogona kuona vana vacho. So tiri kuchema kunyanyanyanya kuti dai paiswa maboreholes, solar powered boreholes, asiri ekugweja. Nokuti ekugweja mai vanenge vakazvitakura. Ari kugwejana nechibhorani. Asi kange yani tank yokuti anongosvika achivhurawo tape, zvinorerutsa and zvinokatawo time. Vozoenda futi. Ndofunga pandataura nyaya iyoyo kuti solar powered boreholes zvinotipa mukana nokuti sekuziya kwedu economy yedu is highly informalized. Vana mai vavo ndo vari kushanda. And they are contributing a lot to the GDP of the country. In a sense yekuti ndo vari kuchengeta vana. Hatina umbonzwa mwana akafa nenzara. Ndo vari kuita kuti vana vaende kuchikoro. Saka vakakurumidzawo kubva kumvura, vachakurumidzawo kuenda kubasa kwavo. Vakunoshanda, vana vakukwanisa kurarama.
Point yamataura ye highly informalized economy. Inondunza pane imwe point inogara ichitaurwa mabudget. Makore apfuura akawanda totogara chidzwa the issue of formalization of the informal sector is something we always hear about. You, one of the hats you said you are wearing is representing Association of Informal Chamber of Economy. How can that be addressed? Kuti formalization iyo iitike because inongotaurwa but aiitike. Challenge iri papi apa uye munofunga zvingagadzirike sei pabudget yatatarisana nayo?
Pabudget yatatarisana nayo challenge iri kucapital. Because my formal business mazhinji akaburitswa panyaya own money, own funding, kana family funding, ne group funding, yavanenge vachiita mikando nechi. Saka pakaiswa budget yokuti ku microfinance bank kwaiswa mari. Mari iri kuiswa zveshuwa. Unonzwa kuti ku women's bank kwaiswa mari, ku women's affairs kwaiswa mari. Asi kuti madzimai vanoaccessa maforms acho zvinodiwa zvacho zvimwe zviri prohibitive. Ndo zvatiri kuti ngazvigadziriswe. Format yacho ive iri accessible, ino zvinonzwisisika nemunhu ordinary person, nokuti hatisi tese takaenda kuchikoro. Asi mabank manager iwo, CEO vakadzidza nemari yemusika. Saka tiri kuti ngazvigadziriswe. Formalization tiri kutoifarira because we want our people to grow. Varege kuramba vari informalized. I think we are now moving with the recommendation, ILO recommendation 204 of 2015, which speaks to formalizing the informal. Saka we are looking at a port where we are saying government ikauya, trade union akauya, civil society ikauya, then community, that's the grassroots, ikauya yokuchidzira poto yoyo, my financial institution ouya, tichapakura financial inclusion, tichapakura social protection, tichapakura social dialogue, kuti TNF tokwanisa unotaurawo kuti tiri pakati saka tatoformalize.
How confident are you that all this wish list of things you've talked about, solar-powered boreholes, formalization, tax thresholds, all these things will be heard and be put in the budget?
To me, I'm very wishful because we have engaged the Parliamentary Portfolio Committee on SMEs, tikataura nawo ma issues, and our informal issues are being now moved as a motion in Parliament. So I have every confidence to say we are going to get the maximum support.
Thank you very much. Well, I'm now joined by the chairperson of a Team B that is conducting these public hearings and reaching out to Zimbabweans across the length and breadth of the country to get their inputs and submissions with regards to the budget process. Honorable Edmund Mkaratigwa, great to have you on the program. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Now, I suppose we want to understand this process that is going on now, this meeting that you've just held. Why was it held? Why is it so important?
Thank you very much. This process is in fulfillment of our supreme law, which is the Constitution of Zimbabwe, which mandates that Parliament must actually involve the citizens of this country when they are seized with the coming up with the budget for the ensuing year. So this time of the year, we are actually conducting pre-budget consultations in order to actually come up with the fiscal budget for the year 2022. And we want to gather the views of the citizens of this nation.
What sort of people attend these? Do they have to be particularly representing any group, any organization, financially savvy or literate, or who gets to be part of this?
We basically are cross-cutting in nature in terms of the inclusivity. It's the broader citizenry of this country and the other stakeholders like your CSOs, organizations that represent the interests of the people, and any other stakeholders that are interested to make sure their views are actually included in coming up with a budget that is pro-people, that speaks to the gaps, that speaks to the needs of our country at large.
What happens to all this information you are gathering? Where does it go from
when we complete our public consultation visits, we are supposed to sit together, the chairpersons of the Portfolio Committee on Budget Finance, as well as the extended SDG committees, and now deliberate on the findings from the public consultations and come up with a collective report that will then present with recommendations to the Minister of Finance for possible uptake into 2022 fiscal budget.
Many people who will come here, and we've certainly seen in this meeting, have a wish list, they have desires, they have things that they want to see addressed. Not all of those may be addressed or be included in the budget. Will that not disappoint people, or what do you say to people who may not see what they said taken up? Will they not say, these people didn't listen to what we said?
When everything is said and done, after the budget process, we will have to make sure we go back to the people and be very candid with them and share with them what has actually been incorporated into the budget. And of course, the message to the people is, at the moment, we are faced with a plethora of issues, a plethora of requirements, and every corner of the country deserves a fair share of the budget. And it is clear that the issues are like an ocean, and we can't boil an ocean. So we encourage responsibility and priority to actually guide our aspirations, our expectations, so that we take it one step at a time and prioritize glaring and needy issues.
Indeed, very good point. The process, I mean, obviously the budget will be crafted as Parliament. Perhaps you could then just share with us the role that you then play after the budget has been passed. Do you have any oversight, and how do you do that? For instance, if you feel that something glaring has been left out, are you able to say, look, the people felt very strongly about this, Minister, do something about it, or adjust your budget in that respect?
After our recommendations and the submission of our overall report to the Minister, he is then supposed to come up using his training, his experience, and he is the driver. He should use his expertise and come up with their actual budget proposition. Then he should bring it back to Parliament. He's going to pronounce which areas he has prioritized, and will look at the gaps and engage him, debate over his proposed budget allocation, and then make suggestions if there are glaring issues, I must say. We'll point out to him, and hoping reason will prevail. He's welcome to accede to some of those proposals or reject them, because it will depend what way outweighs the other in terms of priorities. But yes, we'll exactly go through a process which will see other issues that ordinarily might be left out, but if we amplify the voices of the honorable members, taking from the voices of the citizen, I think some gaps can be closed.
Very lastly, I mean, you've just mentioned the element of SDGs and why you are also part of this process. I think it also speaks to, you know, often when budgets are passed, people look at the economic side, the financial side, the industry, the exports, the GDP, those sort of figures, but perhaps not on the social side, on the people side. And you've just said that it must be pro-people. Are you doing enough as Parliament to push that the budget should be people-driven?
Thank you very much. It starts from consulting the people themselves. And also NDS, National Development Strategy 1, is all about that activity, that strategy that will actually stimulate the growth of our own GDP. And that is the source of our strength, the source of our capacity to then find a pool of funds to actually channel towards social development.
And those who may not be able to participate in person, can they still be part of the process of having their views heard?
Sure, they can be, and we urge them to send written submissions addressed to the Clerk of Parliament, to the attention of the Chairperson Portfolio Committee on Budget, Finance and Economic Development, by way of physical, or they can also actually send emails, and their views will be taken into consideration.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Honorable.
Thank you.